Cobb TV. Watch your life make sense.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for choosing to join another Ask the Kabbalist show. This is your show. It's the show where we ask your questions. And with me as always, Kabbalist Dr. Michael Laitman, answering all of them for you. I'll remind you as always that you can send your questions to tv.Kabbalah.info. There's an Ask the Kabbalist page right there with a very user-friendly interface where you can submit video questions or audio questions or text questions. So you're welcome to do that at any time. Let's begin with our first question that is now coming from Germany, from Fabian from Germany, and it's a video question. Let's watch it.
Hi, my name is Fabian. I'm from Germany, and my question is, what is the real reason for the financial crisis in 2009?
Well, first of all, I don't think that it is the 2009 financial crisis the way I see it and never ended.
Now there are many researches coming out online, a lot of different analysis showing why it happened and different trends, and that it should, people are already talking about the crisis taking place again.
Yes. Yes. The crisis is simply having a change in form because we aren't correcting it, but we're covering it in different ways. And thus, for a Latin period of time, it's cooking and once again breaks out like an illness. Like we want to calm it down, but we don't want to cure it. We can't cure it, suppose. So it as if calms down, and in some time, once again, it shows itself, it appears. The same with the crisis. The reason for the crisis. It's hard to say what the reason for the crisis is if we don't see the entire world, the whole of society, which is a result of it all. And also, all researchers point at it. All in all, our common collective ego pushes man to do everything in order to simply print money and collect it and accumulate it. He doesn't need it, but a few more millions, that's what each one's ego pushes him at. And we're as if in this kind of race that we ourselves don't really need it, but as if it gives us a sensation of security, a feeling of warmth, of greatness, of the I. And that's the way we're going about it. We have to understand that the whole reason is man's developing ego, which is boundless. And we're reaching such actions where we can't stop ourselves. A person, even if he's in a life-threatening situation, still he can't stop himself, but he will keep on with this race. Thus, the correction for it, like the correction for all of our crises, besides the financial crisis, we also have a crisis in family and education and everything.
Ecology is a big problem today as well. Yeah.
That's, of course, it'll finish us quicker than the economy will, because recent researchers are saying that within the next 5 to 10 years, we may find ourselves in another ice age. So, turns out that while we're sitting and talking here, we really have to think about the correction. And the correction of the ego, it's not by forgetting about it and starting to engage in other things as if it doesn't exist. That's in the meantime. We haven't corrected the crisis. We've only covered it by printing a few more billions of dollars. And in the meantime, it's going on. From America, it goes to other countries and returns. It's a kind of a ping pong. Greece, for instance, they couldn't take it, they couldn't overcome the crisis, so they were given a few billions of dollars or euro, and then Spain, and then Italy. But it's not a solution. If you give the poor money, he stays poor, only you've given him, and you've given as a result of printing a bit extra. It doesn't have a cover, actually. It's unbalanced in the world. There's no balance in the world between what you have, between the things that you produce in the world and the money that you print. There has to be balance between the two. And it's out of balance for a long time now, and thus we're undergoing a very serious crisis. There's no correction for it, but correcting man's nature. And the wisdom of Kabbalah speaks about it, and if not, we'll neither correct this crisis, nor especially the eco-crisis.
You know, when you were talking about how the problem is man's ego and that we have to work together in a sense, I remember that I watched a lecture, a presentation by Gordon Brown, and he said similar things actually. It was quite interesting. He said that the financial crisis is not is just a certain aspect of a global crisis, that it's not just this, and all these things have to be solved globally. So it does seem like global leaders, world leaders, are talking about trying to work in a global world.
But they don't have the tools. They don't have the tools to correct it. And thus, they're only covering it because there's no choice. We know that we're going to die, but in the meantime, we don't want to think about it. Let's eat and drink, for tomorrow we die, or the day after. In the meantime, why think about it? That's what every person thinks. For instance, I'm an old person. I know that maybe in a few years I'll die. So what? Now I'll start thinking about death. Why do that? It's even worse than dying now. So that's what they all think. And it's true, it's correct. They're doing the right thing. If you do not have a tool, an instrument to correct the situation, then cover it at least, and whatever happens, happens. That's the max you can do. In the meantime, at least you're as if living a calm life.
Well, what is the tool or the device that the wisdom of Kabbalah speaks about? What is the tool for correcting the crisis?
There is a force immersed in nature and surrounding nature that can correct our inner nature, our ego. The same as that power of nature has created us and developed us to the extent where we became great egoists. That very same force can correct that ego if we only want it. We have to want to use it, that force. It's as if on hold.
Standing by.
And it's waiting. It's waiting until we demand the correction. Why? When we'll demand the correction, we'll be partners with that force, will have this nice correlation. And then we will acquire it and we will correct ourselves by ourselves, as if we'll use it correctly. And then it turns out that I correct myself, and by that I will know what that force is, what is nature, and then I transcend in my consciousness above everything, and then I will truly become man. And then I'll correct everything, both ecology, as much as it seems, warming up, cooling down, things that have to do with astronomy, the stars.
This is what I wanted to say. It needs to be explained, because I can see how correcting man's egoism will help the economic crisis. That's obvious. People will work in with more consideration, and things will be more balanced. But how will this help ecology, for instance?
It will help everything. with that power that has created us. It's the same power that created the still vegetative animate and the speaking species. If we use that force, it starts correcting us. The highest level, the biggest ego exists in man since he develops the world. If we want for that force to correct our ego, it projects its influence also on the degrees that are lower, less than us, and suddenly you'll see the whole world coming to balance, and we'll get a world, like the prophets say, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb.
So Kabbalah is not looking at the world as different things, but as one whole, complete reality.
As one mechanism.
Okay, and in this complete one whole, man is the one factor that needs to be fixed to make the whole system in balance. Okay, so let's move on to Chloe's question. Chloe's from San Francisco, and she sent us a video question. Let's see what she has to say.
My name is Chloe, and I'm from San Francisco. My question is that in this material world where I have rent to pay, and it very much feels like I can't bestow all in order to survive and eat, how do I apply the Kabbalistic ways through my daily actions? What are definable actions I can take?
I understand. She's a very nice young lady. And the times are non-simple times, it's true. Things aren't simple. What can you do? To tell people times aren't simple, true. We agree, and we are participating with you in this sorrow and in this hardship, but do you at least know why? Why is it hard living? What is the purpose of life? Do you have an answer to that? There are people that have great hardships, but maybe they're very satisfied by that hardship. They're happy about it because they know that they achieved something great as a result. Like a person who sometimes works very hard, but he's happy because he sees that as a result of his work, soon he'll achieve a very good goal, he'll buy something great, he'll get great achievements. So it turns out that it all depends on what is the reason, what is the meaning in life. It's not that it's hard to live. If I know that it's hard to live, but I'm working hard in order to become a famous movie star, like that nice young lady, then yes, possibly I feel great. I know that eventually in a few years, in a year, in 2 years, I achieve something which is my dream.
Because you have a big goal in front of your eyes. You have
Thus, the problem is not that I'm suffering at the moment, but for what? Is there a point to it all? Our life is hard, not because I have to work hard, but because I don't know what am I working for. I don't see the reason for it. Why do something in life altogether? We've lost the goal. We've kind of lost hope. What for? Do you remember the American dream? 50 years ago.
The big house, the big car, the big, yeah.
It was a standard for each and every one, and also to show to the world, look what we have. Our culture, Hollywood, the music, everything. And what happened?
Lost the drive. People lost the drive. It's very evident in the young generation, especially today. They're talking about why the education system works and doesn't work, and many people are saying that depression, especially among youngsters, becomes a very prevalent.
I'll tell you, once a year usually I come to America for a tour. I give lectures or I come to some convention. From year to year, I see deterioration in spirit. I no longer see people who are confident with great ambitions, smiling the well-known, famous American smile with the cheese. No, you don't have that anymore. A few streets away from downtown, then it's all quiet there, maybe except for Christmas or in all the rest of the places you really feel the depression. Even in the way a person walks, how he does something at home, how he speaks to someone else. Everywhere you feel that there is kind of this fog coming in, this cloud landing. It's really felt, and from year to year, more and more.
Well, what is this cloud, like you said?
Hopelessness. America, the American nation, they had hard years, but they had hope for security, for freedom, for survival. We will develop the land, the new land, this country. We will do it. You know, everyone were cowboys, that spirit. And that spirit is gone. And that's the worst thing. And thus she says that things are hard, that it's hard for her to pay rent. Why? What for? Meaning the question is, why survive? That's the biggest question. And here we have to give a person a great perspective, that really the good future is expecting him, not after he dies in the next world or wherever. Here, now, you start correcting your ego. By this you balance nature, and from that nature you feel the next world. You cross into infinite dimensions, above time, space and motion. You start feeling your life, not in your body, but in your soul. And it's not a fantasy. It's really the continuity of things. It's what you feel. All that we feel now, it's in order to oblige us to enter the spiritual dimension.
You know, this is a great goal. This is something that I certainly...
Otherwise, you have nothing to give people at all. And that's really what awaits us, because in this world, we've entirely exhausted ourselves.
On the one hand, I don't see anyone who will not like to live for this kind of goal, because eternity, wholeness, above this, you know, lowly, beastly existence, of course, it's a great goal on the one hand. On the other hand, it just sounds unrealistic. It sounds far, far. That's what it sounds. How can we make it close? You know, so it sounds closer.
You don't need that. Today, such a tremendous downfall is revealed in all that we're engaged in this comprehensive crisis, that you have no possibility to come out of it but to correct human society. And to correct human society, it means that you have to reach balance amongst all people, to destroy their ego. When you destroy the ego, you correct it. When you transcend it in order to survive, in order not to finish with this small life of ours on earth that's really coming up. That end is coming up. So if you'll work for that, that's enough. As a result, you'll start suddenly feeling that before you opens up this great entrance perspective that you didn't expect, and that's enough. You don't have to think about the next world, eternity. It's enough that if, here and now, I want to correct my life, which becomes harder from day to day, and it's endless, this deterioration will continue. So there's only one solution: to fight our ego. So, all over the world, we'll have to come to this, how to say, this very simple conclusion. We are fighting our ego.
Okay, and what are, to go back to Chloe's questions, what are definable actions that one can take to take this direction? Something practical, specific that one can do.
Practical, that's only one thing: to open the Kabbalah books. By doing so, you start saying the whole truth, and you yourself start saying what you have to do and what to advise others to do, and that's all there is. Because to turn to the leaders, to turn to different big organizations, the people sitting there, they're completely deaf. They don't see or hear anything besides their own career. We think about them, oh, but they've reached those places because they're unworthy of anything but that. Precisely the people there, they don't have the ear to listen to the things which are truly in the foundation of the world. They can't.
Okay, you're saying the suggestion is just to start opening the books and open the material and absorb it that way. We have a question here, a text question that is coming from Frank. He's from South Carolina, and he's asking, with that regards, does nationality matter in studying Kabbalah, in opening the books? Does nationality have?
What?
If nationality has any kind of issue or effect in opening these books, texts?
Not at all. Not at all. Of course not. Because we're all one humanity. We all came from one person called Adam Arishon, the first man, so to speak. And we all came from one place, ancient Babylon, with the Babylonian tower and all that we had there. And from there, we've dispersed all over earth, and thus there's no difference between us whatsoever. Towards correction, there's no difference. That correction, there was a desire to already make it back in Babylon, to be as one man and one heart, to be in a corrected society, and they couldn't do it, and so they've dispersed. And they stopped understanding each other, but the whole of humanity are one. And thus, the wisdom of Kabbalah that comes to us from ancient Babylon, that's where it started.
Right, the cradle of human civilization, basically.
Even before that, starting with Adam Arishon, the so-called first man, we have the book written by Adam Arishon, and in the book of Zohar, which is the gist book of the wisdom of Kabbalah, there it speaks about the book by Adam Arishon.
I have to ask, we have just about 2 minutes left, I think, but how come a wisdom that is so global, so all-inclusive, universal, doesn't make any difference between people, between nations, and anything? How come that is so concealed, shrouded in mystery, in misconceptions? Why?
Because those who are engaged in the wisdom of Kabbalah are individuals in each and every generation, because they're the only ones who had interests. And besides, they themselves did a big job in concealing the wisdom of Kabbalah, because they waited for the global crisis. And now that we've reached the global crisis that really seals itself with the eco-crisis, you understand, with all those small crises in human society, we're getting into this crisis covering us, eco-crisis, and we have no idea what's going to happen from one year to the next. And thus, in this situation, it means that we've reached the state, like the Kabbalists wrote for thousands of years, that we've reached the state where only now is it possible to open up the wisdom of Kabbalah. And now we have to get rid of all those stigmas about it, which are the red strings, holy waters, different actions,
celebrity, fad, all kinds of...
It has nothing to do, all of that has nothing to do with it. It speaks about correcting man's ego through studying, through getting to know our substance, understanding where we are, what are we, and really Kabbalah is not what people think about it. And like you say, that it has to do with celebrities, and thus let's hope that we'll be able to reach everyone with it, and people will be able to correct themselves and achieve a good and comfortable life in a good way.
We have less than a minute. Last question. How can a study from a book correct my nature and turn me to something eternal?
Because through the book, you connect to the upper system that governs us. That's it. Kabbalah tells you about that mechanism which governs us, and when you start reading, you as if influence it for the better, and it returns to you and improves you.
And influences me in return. Okay, wow, we had a lot.
Let's start.
Yeah, let's start. So everyone's is invited to start, and you're also invited to send more questions to our show. It's on tv.kabbalah.info. There's an Ask the Kabbalist page there with an interface where you can submit video questions or audio questions or text questions. And Dr. Laitman, thank you very much for being with us and answering these questions for us. We'll be happy to be here again for you, and we'll see you in the next show. Thank you and all the best.